Hello, Guild Wars 2 fans, and welcome to GuildGab episode 58. I'm your host, AuroraPeachy, and today we're going to be discussing the story and lore of Heart of Thorns in its entirety. All 16 chapters will be discussed today, so there is your spoiler warning. I am so excited. I've been waiting for this day for, 2 weeks? No, actually, I guess for most of this year to discuss the Heart of Thorns story. But first, let me introduce my super shiny co-hosts, MMO Inks, Alex of the RPG Shack, and Corvus Plays.
Hey, how we doing?
Hello, everybody. Tis a good day today. Tis a good day. We finally get to dish. Oh my goodness.
And
I'm so excited.
Yeah. Wait, there's a story? I thought we just run around and collect the delicious achievement points.
For some people, yes. For some people. But for us, for me, personally, the story was the thing that I was the most excited about. It was the first thing that I jumped into. As soon as I started, I went into that first story instance. I got into the Silver Waste, and I got into the jungle, and just went. And it was wonderful, and it was glorious. Let's start this out just by giving a very overall general, what was your overall general impression of the story as a whole? Just the story, not everything in Heart of Thorns, but the story experience, the instances, the pacing, everything. Let's do like a 1 to 10. Like 1 being don't even play it, and 10 being it was absolute perfection. Okay. Corvus, let's start with you. What do you think?
Do you want to take the lead here, mate? You can go first, Alex.
He's passing.
Wow. Corvus doesn't want to be first.
Are you passing the buck, bud?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. I am gonna give it a 7. I thought when the story was good, it was very good. But there's about a third of it between when you go into the Tangled Depths and just before you go into Novus that I've kind of forgotten what happened, and I only finished it a little bit earlier this week. Having said that section aside, most of the Tangled Depths stuff was just kind of forgettable, aside from Novus. But then everything else was just so cool. The way that all of the missions felt, they felt more akin to the old Guild Wars 1 missions, where instead of like just dropping in for 5 minutes and doing a little bit of story, everything just kind of really wound itself together, and that you felt that even though the missions took place within the playable map world, it didn't feel like you just had this only little tiny bit of kind of the world to play in. So, for example, when I was doing the it was the second or third mission where you have to either defend the Itzel village or attack the Mordrum guys at their own place, you had a huge amount of the Verdant Brink to go and run round, and I think that might have been partly due to the fact that you could go around and do achievements after you've finished the main story. And I thought that that by and large the mission pacing was really, really well done as well. So you had some really good kind of big kind of moments that we're probably going to talk about as we go through it. But one of the things that I really, really liked was how, again, at about the Tangled Depth stage, the missions really start to ramp up in intensity. So we've got the Novus one, which was really, really cool from like a lore perspective, I thought. If somewhat disappointing, I thought they could have done a lot more with that, but we'll probably talk about that in a bit. But then you go from that, then you go to Bitter Harvest, which was just insanely good how like tricky and that mission was. And then you've got the boss fight, which was just awesome. And so the pacing of it felt much, much better than Living World Season 2, and certainly the personal story. But I guess because the personal story is spread out over 80 levels, you can't have a continuing crescendo throughout the entirety of the game. But overall, like I said, where it was good, it was pretty excellent. It's just a shame there were a few fairly major forgettable niggles I remember something about getting poison, and that's about it for the tank deaths.
Who wants to go next?
All
I'll go
right,
next.
So,
Oh, no,
go
no.
ahead, go ahead, Aurora, go ahead.
We'll all
Sid.
go.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm actually going to agree with Alex. I would give it about a 7. I agree when it was high, it was intense, and it was high, and those cutscenes, oh my god, were so good. So good. But there were definite lows, and overall, I feel like I wanted and expected more from it. So I'm happy with how it was done, but I'm not happy with the amount of content and reveals and lore that we got. I was expecting more, and that may be just because due to my own expectations, but I don't think that I'm alone in that. So.
Okay. The way I see it is kind of strange. I think while I was playing through it for the first time, it was probably like a 9 out of 10. Honestly, I was hyped. I was really stuck into it. I was glued to it, and enjoyed every single second of it. But looking back, I think after I finished it, and nearly immediately after it ended, it probably went to about a 7 as well, 7 or an 8. I think the pacing was great. You know, you're in the first zone. The instances were super fun, super good, and that whole map kind of ends on a huge thing, which we'll probably talk about. And I think each zone was kind of split into a chapter kind of thing. You know, like there was like 4 parts to the story, and each zone kind of took over. And each one had a really good balance of like, you know, stuff to do that was fun and kind of like a big moment in it. That being said, it's so short. And whether that's because, you know, it's like a Living World season compiled into one thing, and we could kind of just blast straight through it, so it felt short. Like, if you played through Season 2, it'd probably feel the exact kind of same in terms of length.
Yeah, I think so.
And obviously that's where some of the gating was coming in to kind of make it last longer and feel a bit more like a journey. But honestly, it did seem really, really not rushed, but like we were rushing. Like the stuff was well made, the instances were great, the combat mechanics and stuff like that were so good. Even the story points were good. But it felt like we were kind of rushing through it. There was a lot of stuff they could have put in to flesh things out and make more detailed, like, you know, kind of plot points and stuff there. You know, Ratanovus is a really good one there, just because we're there for 2 seconds, and I think that it was kind of filled with missed opportunities, I guess. There was just so much that they could have given us and told us more about. And I mean, I remember saying, you know, not long before launch, maybe the episode we did the day before launch, about how there was all these mysteries about about, you know, Glint's legacy. We still don't really know. We know what it is. It's the egg, which we kind of knew already, but we don't know, like, even the information about the Exalted and stuff wasn't super fleshed out and told to us in the story in a really deep way.
There was that one cutscene after you get the... Is it after you find the egg?
Yeah, you're running from Fallon, and after that you kind of get an explanation, I think, when you're going into the city as well. But it just still didn't feel full of, I don't know, enough of information, really. So I don't know, I think it was really good when I was playing through, but I've got the robot voice again.
You're good.
No, you're
now.
right.
Sorry.
You're good now.
Okay. I just think that it was super fast, and kind of like we were on this really well polished kind of guided tour, as opposed to really going through and experiencing this thing as kind of as deep and as intensely as we kind of should have been. So I think while I was playing and I was on that kind of ride, 9 out of 10, but looking back and looking at what I was expecting and what I wanted, I would say about a 7.
All right.
Thanks.
So, story. I think if we're just talking about the instanced version of the story, I'm looking at a 6.5 at best. I know that sounds a little harsh. Some people are going to disagree with that. That's okay. But I felt like it was on this really weird roller coaster. So we would start the journey, and you'd get to a particular point, and then it was all downhill, and then they would jack you up again a little bit, and it was all downhill. And then you got to a certain point in the story where it was just all downhill, and you were like rushing through each steps until it was done, you know? As far as the story written-wise, I think it was very well written, but like a lot of people, it was too short. There wasn't nearly enough character development for my liking all throughout. I feel like they wrote one really long story, and they decided somewhere along the line to cut it in half. And they gave us half in Heart of Thorns, and then Living Story Season 3 is probably going to be like the other half. And I think there's some evidence, and maybe this is not how they did it, but it feels that way, right? The ending is not wrapped up very well. Normally we're left with this cliffhanger, and we still get a cliffhanger. Tons of unanswered questions, obviously, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But the way in which those questions are unanswered is they were questions that were unanswered from Living World Season 2. Some things are just simply never addressed. Where is Malik? How come we never see Malik? Why does... then there's other little things like Broham never uses his longbow. Okay, Eric
God,
dies.
that killed me.
He picks up the longbow.
me.
He never uses
Oh
it,
my
right?
God.
I think that there's this perfect moment when Fallon dies, or even when you fight Mordramoth, where he could have pulled this bow out for like the decided shot, right?
Or just for effect or something.
Oh God, that would have been so.
I think
epic.
that moment is still coming. I think we're gonna get it. There's mention very early in the story about, well, where's Garm? Who the hell knows? We never see Garm.
Yep.
Who knows where Garm is? Lost in the jungle somewhere, I guess.
Maybe the next specialization for Ranger is going to be Beastmaster or something, so Rox can have 2 pets.
And Marjorie, she never embraces Reaper. She never even, matter of fact, we get to the last instance, and she's kind of like, okay, boss, I'll protect you while you go into the dream, the Scooby-Doo scene. You go into the dream, right? And... what? She doesn't ever embrace that. There's literally no Casimir in the story whatsoever.
Oh God, Casimir's my
No
favorite
rocks
character,
either.
and she had
And
like
then-
3 lines.
And then at the very end, you talk to Jory, and she's like, "Yeah, there's just a bunch of stuff going on," and there's like she kind of alludes to this, that her and Casimir are not getting along. They're having a fight or something.
Something's yeah.
But you would like, so they kind of answer it. It's like, why does Casimir not talk? Well,
Because she's having a hissy at
But
Marjorie.
Casimir isn't just Jory's partner. She's her own character.
Exactly.
she was
I
barely
noticed
in it.
Rox as well. Rox was just absent basically the entire time. Like it was just
Yeah.
right. You don't really
They
hear
were
a lot
always-
of talks.
I feel like the whole story was either trying to find your party members, sending them away, splitting up the party, meeting back up with them. Like that was I felt like almost until the very end. I felt like actually no, still to the very end, because when you rescue Zoja and Logan, you still okay, Casimir and whoever else go and take them back. But you're always sending off characters, splitting up the party, and I wanted to be this cohesive group going through the story and finding out these secrets and adventuring. And I understand that some of it needs to be solo, such as you being the egg bearer. And having the egg on your back in the open world after that was incredible. That was super cool. But I felt like it was always chasing the party.
Yes.
And that was the way of getting our characters through the jungle rather than seeking out. I didn't feel like it was seeking out Mordramoth. We have to get closer to Mordramoth. It was, well, your party went into the jungle that way, so let's go try and find him.
What my biggest problem with that is that it waited until the very last instance when you meet Ritlock and Rox and stuff again, and it was at that point that it felt like it was starting, because so much of it was spent finding people and hunting them down and grouping up. It was like you were waiting to start this adventure with your party, and that it sucked. And you find out Mordramoth has a weakness that we could have gone further into the jungle to look for that or various other things. But because we were just spending so much time looking for our party, it didn't feel like, I don't know, it kind of felt like the prelude almost.
Right, that's not looking for your party members, not the ones that are, I'm not talking about like Logan and Zojia who are lost and Kaith were chasing her, because we did that too, but so much of it was like literally catch up with your party. That's not an epic adventure, that's not an epic quest, that's filler. And I felt like there was so much filler we only got 16 chapters, as they call them, 16 parts. And I went through today and looked at them all and like highlighted the ones that were like major story points. We got major lore pieces and ones that were honestly just filler. And half of them, something super major happened, which is decent, but only having 16, I wanted every single one to be bam, bam, bam. We are learning things. Like, you are blowing my mind in every single chapter. Right. And I felt like I only got that intermittently. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm counting 5 that I call pure filler. We're following Rox's footprints. We're,
Rox's footprints was in the open world. It wasn't technically a story chapter.
Yeah, and some of those chapters were in the open world.
Counts as a chapter.
One of the fillers was basically learn gliding. One was learn mushroom bouncing or mushroom jumping. You know, and I felt like I felt like they were filler again to just get you further into the jungle.
Yeah. I mean, like Alex was saying, right? With the personal story, it's a long thing, and not everything's going to be huge.
Sure.
Which is completely understandable with something as long as the personal story. This is 16 chapters. You know, that much filler is kind of not that great. If it was longer, that it would have been fine because it would have been this like slow thing. But because it's kind of like this shot glass of story, you want every single tiny part of it to be as impactful as possible. And it was a shame.
I see it as... Sorry. I see it as the living world. They really tried to make it like TV episodes. It was literal episodes. Episode 1, episode 2. And then there was a season finale. And they were episodes. I feel like an expansion to the game should be like a movie. This should be the movie. This should be where all the big stuff happens. And it did, sure. The end 2 instances were incredible. The last 2 blew my mind. But I feel like there should have been more development as there would be in like a movie where like Bran becoming a dragon hunter. Like, okay, so in the series in the season, we had Marjorie slowly learning to use the great sword, slowly accepting her sister's death. She was slowly becoming a reaper. And then Bram, I felt like in the movie, he should have just whipped out the longbow and just bam, his mother dying in front of him, with him not being able to do anything, should have just shocked him into bam, he's a dragon hunter. And that's what can happen in the movie. Yeah. You know?
Having said that, I thought that there were some really great instances of characterization within the story itself. Ritlock, like, aside from the fact we found out bugger all about what a revenant
Don't
actually
get me started
does,
on that.
and he was like, I have powers and they're emotional. I was like, for God's sake, man. And the thing is, I can get behind a little bit of intrigue with the Revenant and the Mist, but this is the Revenant's expansion. This is the place where you go, hey, this is Heart of Thorns, this is what the Revenant's about, not you've got the Revenant, now find out in season 3 of the Living... No, it's...
You'll never find out, is my fear. Ritlock was a really important character for anyone who plays the Revenant or anyone who is really involved in the Revenant as well, because he is supposed to be the character defining for your class. He gives your class context. But you never, like many things about Ritlock, you never really get context. You don't get a lot of context about what that involves. It goes all the way to the end of the story where he says, yeah, I have some powers from the Mist. He still doesn't explain exactly how it works. He doesn't really seem to understand exactly how it works himself. He says, I'm still learning my powers, even though he's whipping out elite herald skills left and right, you know.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it would have been so cool. I think I said this on a previous GuildGab. I would have loved to have seen some actual interaction between Ritlock and these spirits he was invoking.
How many of us expected him to do something with that? Channel
my
Glint
God.
or
I am
channel
so
anything.
disappointed that I kept waiting. I'm like, channel Glint. You can channel Glint. You're a herald. Obviously, you're using Glint's powers. Obviously, like I wanted to talk to her. I wanted him to acknowledge something about being a revenant, and he just never did.
And having Glint be channeled into Rhea was just, if you'll forgive the pun, a golden opportunity.
Oh, snap. Our pun game is so good today.
Yeah, our pun game is strong. But, seriously, it would have been a fantastic opportunity to bring the Revenant, or at least Ritlock, into the lore and tie a little bit into what was going on with the Golden City. And it's just kind of like...
I think there's a missed opportunity with Zoja has like 2 or 3 lines.
A missed opportunity.
It doesn't work when you go back and put a pun it, dude.
So Zoja has a couple of lines, right? Which really we know that getting Felicia Day into the studio is difficult, and so Logan has like no lines. So instead of having Zoja have a couple of lines, why not have Zoja have like no lines because she's unconscious, and let Logan have a couple of lines. Let him have that moment with Ritlock where it's kind of like they're bros again, right? Because they do resolve that issue in the original story. They're pissed at each other because Logan runs away. They resolve with each other once again. And if you haven't read the books, Logan and Ritlock are very good friends. They're chums.
Like very close, yeah.
Ritlock considers Logan to be part of his warband, and that's a very big thing for a Char. That's not something they do lightly, right? Chars just don't make friends like that lightly. Brothers, so to speak. And I just think it would have been a much better, more powerful moment if Ritlock's the one to save Logan and he's semi-conscious. Now, as it is in the story, Zoja's very weak but conscious, and Logan is just like passed out or something.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter.
Is that different
which
if you?
order.
It doesn't matter.
Whoever you choose is fine. The other person is kind of unconscious, I think, is how it works.
So if you choose to save Logan, does he have dialogue?
No. Yeah, and he's fine. Yeah, he has a bit of dialogue, and Zoja's the one that's unconscious.
And then you have to fight clones of her instead of Logan.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I get that immediate payoff, but I didn't feel like they were talking a lot about these immediate payoff moments, and I just don't really think they existed so much within the story. The few branching decisions that we got really kind of meant even less than they meant previously in the story. Like, sure, you got immediate payoff, like you got immediate resolution as to what happens, but they never felt impactful. There was never any kind of impact on, if I choose left instead of right, if this matters in the story. No, none of it matters. It doesn't.
It mattered. Yeah, it mattered in the instance, not the story, right?
But
like
even
you go
then,
and do
it
something
didn't have.
else.
Even then, it didn't have really that large of an impact. I never felt impacted by those choices.
And the end of instance, like the splitting, that little splitting path icon that we saw in the second instance in the beta, where you only got the one choice, and then in the actual story, you actually got to choose which one you wanted. Those splitting, like end of story instance splitting decisions, there was 2 of them. 2.
Yeah.
That's it. And they had said like branching story arcs, and it's going to affect your. There was 2 of them. It was rescue the soldiers or build the pack base, and then in
save
4
Zoja
there was save Zoja or Logan.
There was the Itzel village as
there
well.
There was a attack,
yeah.
defend the Itzel village or go attack. But I don't like that. I feel like that wouldn't have made any difference. And
what you do in that instance is totally different depending on the choice you make.
Yeah, and it does affect the open world part after that mission. Before,
the NPCs you have to find is different.
Prisons of the dungeon. Now, that I thought was a really cool touch. That depending on the choices that you make within that mission, the open world, there are parts of it which, kind of branch and do different things, slightly differently. What I think is kind of important to note about this is that Guild Wars 2 is an MMORPG, and in the world of RPGs, across the board, MMOs are the kind of RPGs with the weakest story. Mainly because they have to rely on other aspects, such as things like, achievement points, raids, grinding, whatever you want to call it, across the dozens and dozens of MMORPGs that are out there to keep their player base coming back. If you look at classic single-player RPGs like Planescape Torment, Baldur's Gate, Knights of the Old Republic, even like Mass Effect and that kind of thing, all of those games can throw unlimited resources into the story because that is what's going to keep people coming back. Now, the story in Heart of Thorns, I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was, there was some amazing moments in it. And some of the mechanics, and especially like some of the meta events in the maps, are just unbelievably cool. And I know we're starting this off a little bit kind of critical, but we have all sunk a ridiculous amount of time into this expansion over the last 2 weeks, and I think as we go through, we're going to talk about how much we love this damn thing. But through playing MMOs, I seem to be of the opinion that they're not at the top of the priority list when it comes to designing the complete package. And I think that Heart of Thorns has suffered from that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I will say this. Here's the other thing, too, and I think a lot of players, maybe they haven't fully experienced this yet. Maybe they have missed some of these points because they are dynamic events that happen in the world. But when I said 6.5, that's for the instant story only. Now, one of the things about Heart of Thorns is that a lot of the story also happens outside of the instance itself. So, for example, in Dragon's Stand, that final battle that you have with the Mouth of Mordremoth is very important to the end of the story itself as well. One of the things that, and we'll talk about, I guess, that final fight in the boss in a minute, which I absolutely loved. But when I finished the story, I was a little disappointed because I understand, they make this comment of you're walking on Mordremoth's back the entire time. He's hard to quantify because he's just everything. He's the jungle and whatever. But I still wanted to see a dragon. I still wanted to see his gigantic head or his massive body or something. Instead you invade his dreams and you Freddy Krueger him in his sleep.
Yeah.
But doing that dragon stand gives you context. It's Mordremoth's mouth, but it's basically a giant, Chinese, type dragon that you're fighting. And that fight is also extremely cool, very well done, an awesome dynamic event. But that adds a lot to the story that felt like it was missing in the instanced part. And Radanovis, likewise, which, when I heard about Radanovis for the very first time in the story, super excited, right? I'm a big archaeological fan as far as Egypt goes, as far as, the Incas and the Mayans and a lot of that kind of history and culture. And Radanovis was very much like that for me. As soon as I heard about it, it's like this lost city of Asurans. I knew right away they were all dead. There's no way that they were still alive after all this time. But you get there and you do the story, and for sure, 100%, we're coming back to Radanovis later to learn more, to explore more, to find out more. But the story instance doesn't leave you with a very satisfied feeling. At least it didn't for me.
No.
But when you come back to it in the open world, there's tons of lore in that area. There's the little instructors you can speak to every day that have little lore questions for you. There's dropped papers and notes and events that happen all over that area that are absolutely amazing, that really flesh that area out. And it makes it very special when you play through it in the open world. But if you don't play through it in the open world and you just play in the story instance, you lose, I think, a lot of that feeling. So that's also very important. For players who just play the story, get out into the world. Those moments or those parts where it feels very lacking in certain aspects, there's a lot of stuff that's happening in the open world with dialogue and events and little bits of lore that try and flesh the rest of the story out. Now, perhaps that's not the best way to deliver it to you or to tell it to you, but I think that's something that ArenaNet tried to do. They tried to merge this instant story with a live story that's happening as you play through at the same time. I think the idea was to play the instance and then get dumped into the world and play through that area in the open world, and you're supposed to kind of merge those two experiences together, I think is what is supposed to happen. Sometimes that works, and sometimes it's a little bit of a miss.
I think that if they continue that going forward, I think that that's great, but not having known that, I had no clue you could go back to Radanovus and learn more stuff. I had no clue. So to me, it felt like when I heard there was a certain city, I was like, what? Oh my god. I started, oh my god, they're going to know so much. And then in the next instance, we hear that it's dormant. They're all dead. Okay, so that lowered me a little bit. Oh, well, their research will still be there. Okay, and that got me excited again. And then we got there, and again, in the instance, the only thing that we got out of it, all these computers, all these display screens, it was every dragon has a weakness. What's Morgemoth's? I don't know. I was like, give me something else. Give me something else.
I was okay
but
with that.
I don't know what we know going back to it in the open world. I haven't done that yet.
I'm okay with not knowing his weakness at the end of that story. The problem becomes as soon as you leave that story, it's like, down the roller coaster, okay, we know his weakness, gotta get into his dream and kill him. It's just like
it's the power of friendship.
Yeah, it kind of like instantly happens. I think if there was another chapter or two in between where there's a little bit more development, then it works a little bit better. But I think it just happens too soon after Radanovus, and you just suddenly like, yes, I know what his weakness is now. We'll kill him in his dreams, in the dream of dreams.
Well, that was kind of rushed. I was expecting like a chapter based around going out and working out the weakness. But it was kind of like, oh, we'll go there, and then in the final instance, the idea of entering the dream is kind of suggested. And then after that whole fight, then it's kind of like, oh, wow, so that was his weakness, It wasn't like we worked it out. It was kind of like a retrospective, like, oh, yeah, this was it.
Well, during the fight, you sort of work it out.
You kind of get
it happens too quickly, I think. It just,
I think it would have been really...
boom, it's in your face.
It would have been really cool to go through it and maybe look at what we did with Zaitan, and find out, okay, so that was his, what could, it be for him? We don't know if every dragon has a weakness. That could be anything. Maybe it's like a kryptonite and everyone's weak to a stone or a gem or anything. It could have been any kind of weakness. And, I don't know, it would have been cool to explore that, for sure. It would have been, I don't know.
What about a nice big chunky flamethrower?
That would have been...
Well, the instance when you get the bombs and you can just bomb. That was so much fun.
They do explain in that same last instance where, I don't forget who, but somebody does say, like, oh, we'll just take a torch to him. And I think... Like, no, that's...
No, he'll grow back. No, that's not going to work. That was good. I loved that at the final... Before the final, you go into the final story instance, you are in that, like, instance out in the world, kind of, where you can go to the top of the spiral and talk, and there's lore up there, and that it's different before and after you complete the story. Yes. That was wonderful. That was really great, because one of my biggest problems in RPGs is that once you beat the final boss, there's no, like, save file. You don't save and then you go back and see, yay, everyone's happy. I'm sure there are games like that, but, like, for me, I'm very jaded from my childhood from Super Mario RPG, for example, meant so much to me. And after I defeated the final boss, I wanted to go back to the Mushroom Kingdom and see everything happy and talk to everybody, and I never got to do that. Yeah. So the fact that we got to do that here, maybe it's a little thing, but the fact that I got to go there and everyone's like, yeah, we defeated Morgemoth, and, we still have many challenges ahead. The fact that I could do that was
that being
really
said, though,
a nice touch.
Kind of.
One huge blow to me.
I just wish it was voice acted.
One huge blow to me was the fact that we never got any kind of resolution instance, right? You kill Zaitan, you're back at Fort Trinity, and everything's like, cool, it's fireworks, and it's like this nice closing. Yeah, there was absolutely no closure to this at all.
That's true.
And we see the cliffhanger, and I thought maybe there'd be another instance that'll explain stuff. We don't know how the pale tree is. We don't know who died in, like, we don't go through and have some kind of memorial thing for whoever died in the attack. We don't go back and have this funeral for Traherne. We don't even go back to, and obviously they're waiting for season 3 to do this, but we don't go to Tarir to find out what's going on. We don't, and I don't know, like, we were set up with so much about Glint's egg all the way through season 2, even before that with the Zephyrite and stuff. And
I think
that the expansion wasn't about that. The story in Heart of Thorns isn't about the egg, really. Like, it was, and we were chasing Kaith, but as soon as it's put there.
But I thought the egg was key to defeating the Elder Dragons. It was key to defeating Mordremoth. It was key. Yeah. We got it back to the city and it sat there. Sure, at the end, the ley energy went into it, and I'm sure, trust me, I'm sure that's going to come into the story. Exactly, but I wanted 100%. A payoff now. There wasn't enough payoffs.
Yeah. It was pretty cool watching it. I mean, when me and mate, we did the final boss together, and we were both there and what's going on? Oh, this is cool. And then the egg comes out, oh, are they going to do the thing?
I was waiting. I was
glowing, and then it goes black. And
yeah.
No.
I was like, a dragon roar, wings, a little dragon. If there would have been like a little dragon mouth, like there's an actual dragon and it's something that I would have been so happy. I would have been like, yes, we're gonna go back and there's gonna be a dragon, but there was nothing.
I mean, the thing is, it's fairly obvious that a dragon's gonna hatch from the damn thing, but it would have been cool to see it. It would have been really, really cool to see it.
I think like a lot of those payoffs, unfortunately, are gonna come in Living World Season 3. We're going to find out about the Pale Tree and the egg and all that other stuff. I do agree. I think it would have been much better to get that payoff now rather than at the beginning of Living World Season 3, and then that way you can start Living World Season 3 kind of fresh. Like, your character even says, like, okay, it's time for a rest, and Broham's like, rest? Oh, there's no time for rest. There's so much to do. And your guy's like, Broham, relax, bro. Chill out. We all need a rest. It's been kind of rough, man. Just relax. We need a rest. And that's cool, but giving that resolution now is better. I think. I think it would have been better to have that now rather than the beginning of season 3 because we're in a rest period right now. Our characters are taking a vacation. They're taking a break after their epic fight and their struggles.
This is what makes me question it, though. Like, the fact that the resolution we got was that kind of little instance where you talked to the NPCs that you were saying, Aurora. The fact that we didn't get a huge instance now kind of resolving everything, I think is very much to do with how Season 3 is going to be. I think we're probably going to start Season 3 the second the Heart of Thorns is over. We're going to go investigate this thing, and straight away we're going to be thrown into all this stuff. I think the fact that we didn't get a resolution thing, that isn't because ArenaNet were rushing it or there wasn't enough time to throw something like that in there. I definitely think it's because they can't fit something in there because it's going to be straight into something else in Season 3. I 100% believe that we're going to go back, and there's a lot of stuff about balance that we heard about in Season 2. There's an event in Auric Basin about the Druid markings, which you translate Druid text that's there, and it talks about equilibrium and how important that is. And how it has to be restored and stuff.
Can I actually bring up a fairly weird point there? That's kind of a gigantic. Well, it's kind of like plot breaking because all of season 2 was about, the balance of magics with the dragon. Killing Mordremoth might not be the answer. And the second friggin' heir's dead, they're like, "Fuck it, let's kill him."
It's understandable, though.
Oh, see, that's, of course, I think, and I even think that my dreams of, learning that, no, we can't kill Mordremoth because it will upset the balance. I accepted that those were my lofty dreams. No, it's going to be slaughter all of them.
I think
so
much...
I hope that it doesn't, though, because Ritlock
I hope not.
And Ritlock's new best friend, Broham, are now on the Kill Dragon train, where Ritlock's like, okay, who's next? Let's just keep killing dragons.
I think
we're on this dragon slaughter tour 2016 where we're just riding this train of kill everything. Where I was hoping that there would be a little bit of this questionable actions. Yeah, and I don't think we've reached that point
That's
yet.
what I was hoping for.
But I think it's hard to remember sometimes that all this stuff about the balance and the dragons. This is this is all our theories, you know, like our characters never once said this stuff. And yet, and maybe there's going to be an event later on where we work this stuff out and it becomes this huge plot point, or kind of turning point in the plot. But at this point, no one's really worked this out. The kind of vision we got was just not really understood, and you know, a million YouTube videos from different content creators, a lot of theory threads on Reddit and the forums. Like, that's what's kind of come to this conclusion of balance and this stuff. In terms of the story, that's not really happened, or at least not yet.
Right.
So, I mean, I was going in there really hoping that we would get that explained and there would be some kind of reason why maybe we should think twice about this. And maybe we'll find that out in Season 3. Maybe the magic rushed to the nearest thing that it possibly could that was trying to consume it, and that would have been the egg, and it's going to hatch, and it's going to be this huge thing because of all the magic. I mean, that's the entire magic of a friggin' leyline point and Mordremoth. Like, the dragon's going to be big, and maybe then the Exalted are going to realize their plan of raising this thing into filling the spot of an Elder Dragon, and that's where everything's going to happen. I was expecting a lot, I think we all were, and maybe we were expecting too much. But the thing is, this is the first expansion, right? We didn't know how big the story was going to be, how much kind of scope it was going to have.
Right.
So maybe our expectations were high, and maybe that is on us.
Corvus.
I think, though... I know, I'm sorry.
Right.
I don't know.
I still wanted more.
I don't know. I think that early on they set up this perfect opportunity for Malik to really play a part in this story.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he never plays a part. And I don't know that he's ever going to play a part. Maybe he still fits in. Maybe there's still a couple circumstances where he can still fit in. But I think that there was an opportunity for him to, I don't know, be this leader of this rebel group of Sylvari who didn't have a pale tree who resisted Mordremoth, and they showed the other Sylvari ways to fight against his corruption or something. I don't know. I just think that there was story opportunities there, and they weren't really
no,
touched
I agree.
on.
Yeah. I mean, on a slightly kind of more positive note, I mean, what were our favourite moments from the story? Let's get it upbeat, people. Let's talk about the stuff we love.
Okay.
There's death.
Like, Air's
death
so
was done fantastically.
Absolutely.
Absolutely fantastic. I did not expect her to like be in this battle with Fallon. When she threw that spike back at her and hit her in the back, I was just like, I was like, oh my god.
It was almost perfect. Almost perfect, that scene. I'm not sure why she didn't dodge roll at the end there.
Thank you. That is the one thing. I was like, come on, grab him. I was like, grab the tail. Grab the tail.
She knew it was coming. She gives you that look like, I'm about to take this right in the gut. She doesn't dodge.
I think it was supposed to be a look of accepting her fate, but it didn't. It looked like she was ready, and she is Norn. Like, come on, I expected her to like try to grab the tail or do something, not just accept it. But either way, I'm satisfied with it, and I'm so happy. That's what we wanted, right? We wanted Air to die because we said Air's gonna die, Bram's gonna get her bow. You know,
we knew this,
and it happened, and I was so happy because not because I hate Air, I love Air. But it needed to happen. Member of Destiny's Edge, a major character. I mean, Traherne too. So major
the
character
founder
death.
of Destiny's Edge, the person that brought everyone in Destiny's Edge together. You know, this is a huge deal. It's crazy.
Well done.
I think what the way that Air died as well, because she was kind of like squaring up, ready to kind of take it, you know, punch it in the chops, and then the vine-toothed tail out of nowhere, and I mean. Have we all seen have we all seen Serenity? You know the bit where
not in a while, but yeah,
you know the bit where Wash dies and he gets the spike through the chest. Yeah. It was just like that, and he just comes flying through and it goes like that. I was like, whoa! That was like there was no kind of like great fanfare, no kind of like Boromir heroic speech at the end.
She has like 18 spikes in her and she's still walking.
It was just complete impact. It was amazing.
It was really,
just that
really
cold,
good.
That cold just...
And then she's done,
She's dead.
And that was the first big cutscene we saw too, the new style of cutscene, which I love. With the depth of field, the in-game graphics, like it really, really well done. It was all those cutscenes.
It was old school Guild Wars 1 cutscenes. I really liked it.
in game.
But enhanced.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
yes.
god. They were really good.
Oh, Teddy, she was out of dodge rolls.
Oh,
That whole scene was great though, because she shows like her, I guess her human side, in that she goes back to sort of save Fallon, and she gets stabbed for it, and that stab had a real impact.
It
you
did.
know?
It did.
Yeah.
You felt
she
it.
She just rips it out like a champion and throws it right in her back.
It was so great.
That was so. I've got to say, I don't think
Loved
anyone.
it. Loved it.
Everyone was fairly sure that Air was going to die because Brahm was going to get her longbow,
Right.
but I don't think anybody expected it that early. I think we were expecting
No.
it towards the end of the story. You know, as like a heroic sacrifice to
That was.
save her
I think
friend.
that's so much of like, and that's where the pacing of things was really good. They planned this out really well. So you're in there, you're learning about the jungle, you're still kind of exploring. You finally catch up with people, and they just throw you this huge thing, like this absolutely massive thing, and it felt so. It was sad, but it was just so good. Like I was kind of like, it was just brilliant. Like it's such a high impact scene, and it was brilliant. So good, so
It
good.
was.
Now, a lot of people were more upset or more affected by the Timey and
Scruffy's
Scruffy's death.
I was gonna call him Mr. Sparkles, but yeah, the Timey and Scruffy bit. Really, I didn't really.
Alex, hold me.
Honestly, I was like, she's gonna rebuild him. What is
Yeah.
this emotional
No,
connection? Oh my
but
god,
he's-
Scruffy, you're gonna die.
Dude,
and then
he stops-
in the same
he
instant, she's
stops
like, I'm gonna
walking.
rebuild him. I'm gonna
He
rebuild
stops
Yeah, he does.
walking, and
Scruffy
she's feeling all
2.0.
sad. And
And he turns and he looks back. And it was just like,
me and Alex.
I didn't know. I
Me
was
and
like, is he
Alex,
alive? Like, I never thought that he had his
yeah.
own, like,
Well, I think that was a
thought
surprise
process.
for players, right? Because she's
Yeah.
like, okay, Scruffy, go do it. Like,
He's
go
like,
sacrifice
really?
yourself.
Nah, but
And
she
he
was
goes
kind of
up there and
tearing
he's
up.
like,
I
look at
felt
her voice.
no,
She
yeah,
was
I
up.
did. I felt a little bit for Timey, but I
So
didn't.
upset.
I didn't feel. I
don't
felt for Timey a little bit. I didn't feel for Scruffy's death because I was just like, she's gonna rebuild him. She's gonna
Yeah,
make him
yeah,
better,
but
powerful.
It wasn't Scruffy. It wasn't.
Look.
It wouldn't be Scruffy 2 because like
It's not
the essence
him.
of Scruffy inside.
Exactly.
I'm sure there's a Star Trek episode about this where Data tries
Yeah,
to kill his
yeah.
or something, and she dies or whatever.
I don't know.
But-
I didn't feel the Scruffy moment. I was just like, she's gonna rebuild him. It's all good. I
but
did
Me and
feel
Alex,
like
me and Alex are comfortable with our emotions. Okay,
Yeah.
we can admit when we were upset.
Yeah.
That was a
Yeah,
sad. That was a
I thought
sad
it was
moment.
You wanna know-
I
okay.
thought his awareness was cool, but
Mm-hmm.
gonna
You
rebuild
want to
him.
know? I shed tears once during this story,
Yeah.
and it
Ooh.
was at somewhere where I
Goodness.
absolutely did not expect to. During the final battle, Tybalt showed up.
Oh snap! Yeah, dude.
Tybalt, if you are Order of Whispers, when he's
Whispers.
summoning Bram, he's summoning
Oh, man.
the evil people at the end of the Morgemoth battle.
Yeah.
At the end, he summons whoever your order, whoever your mentor was in your order, and the character I
We
was
got
on was
Tybalt,
Order of
dude.
Whispers. So
Yeah,
I got
dude.
Tybalt. I was like,
Huh.
no, you did not. No, I was like, you are a cruel bastard, Morgemoth. No, I cried.
I didn't get that.
You didn't get
I didn't get that
anybody? Did
No,
you
I
get the
got it.
part where that
I
he's
got it.
summoning evil Bram, evil Marjorie, evil Ritlock?
And it's where
Did
the
you get
the
that?
magic lines are
I
coming
got
up.
Evil
to.
Kate.
Yeah, and then
Alex,
yeah,
did you do it on your Revenant?
I did. Yeah.
So did I. And then we didn't do the story up to that
No,
part.
we didn't do the story.
Oh,
we
oh,
You skipped a little fight.
Oh wow, interesting.
That might have made it harder for you though, because you wouldn't have had that extra buff after you defeated.
Interesting.
No, it wasn't. I had an elementalist with me, and that made it exceedingly.
Okay, okay. That was so good because you're like, okay, Tybalt, grab an apple and let's do this. And
Yes!
it was so good. That was.
It was
amazing.
so unexpected. I loved it because it was
I'll have to
so
play through
unexpected.
that now again because
Me
I
too,
didn't
yeah.
have that moment. I didn't have that moment
So
at all.
you'll get either Siren or Fogel depending on your order, your character's order.
So then, did
Siren,
you get?
I love Siren. Siren's
So
my
then,
favorite.
you got Ritlock. Who
Ritlock,
did you get?
Marjorie, Bram.
Cave.
Was it
Did get
Cave?
Cave.
Was it Cave?
Yeah.
I got
Cave,
Cave.
and then Tybalt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, me and Alex missed a guy. We didn't get one. We didn't get one extra
Oh,
person.
okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm glad I did the personal story on my Sylvari.
Yeah. Who did we?
You get Traherne. Someone says you get Traherne if you're not in an order.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We got Traherne.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
You got Traherne.
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
Oh man.
Yeah, we got Traherne. He was easily the hardest of the lot.
Yeah.
Keith was the hardest for me. She kept knocking me back when I was trying.
Yeah, that was the other choice that we got was what party members to bring into the dream.
Yes.
Not Keith. Not
Keith. Hashtag not Keith.
Yeah.
I took Keith and Traherne, or Keith and Canuck, because I was a Sylvari and I wanted to take in. I was like, you know what? Let's take in all Sylvari because you got Keith, Canuck, and Bram was your choices. And so I said, well, let me take all Sylvari because this might be the only time I do it on a Sylvari character. And there was actually dialogue. Someone said, really? You're going in all Sylvari? Like, are you trying to, are you, they're like, we have to show that the Sylvari are the one to beat him. I was like, oh, that is cool.
If you play a Sylvari and you take Canuck, or if you play a Sylvari and take another Sylvari, Ritlock says, do you really think it's wise to have two Sylvari going in there?
Okay, yeah.
Sylvari or something?
Yeah. I chose Canuck and Bram because I felt like Bram kind of deserved to get that payback for air dying and stuff like that.
And like fighting Blighted Air was a bit of a slog, but it was pretty easy. You just it was not easy exactly, but she had pretty wide tells, and the mechanic was It was interesting that you had to repeatedly knock the crap out of Garm.
Yeah, I felt bad because I hadn't seen him in ages. You had to down basically down Garm so she comes and revives him, and then she's vulnerable and you can kill her a lot easier.
I'm never choosing Bram.
The Canuck fight was amazing. That was
the
really
good. The Canuck fight I think took me the longest.
Yeah, he was tough.
It was good, but he was tough.
I had to swap to ranged weapons because I kept dying, and then you obviously get a shield to reflect the grenades.
Yeah, that was interesting.
That was cool. That was a really cool fight.
I honestly found his shield useless. I was going around for about 10 minutes trying to knock the grenades back, and then I was just like, and then I was like, I just dropped it and started attacking him normally.
Oh, what? It worked fine for me. It worked.
You couldn't knock back the fire ones, but you could knock back the regular ones.
But he kept bringing the shield up, which made the stun ones bounce back to me.
He was bouncing it back to you like Zelda. Yes. It was like Ocarina of Time. He bounced it back and forth.
Well, I think part of the problem too was I was playing Revenant, so I was playing with the shield, and it's like, this is ineffective. Threw the shield away and was just like sword. Stab you to death.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did.
Did anyone here pick Keith? Did anyone else take Keithan?
You get the pale tree.
You get the pale tree. Yeah.
Which all I know is that people had a few problems with that fight. Maybe it was I can't remember.
I didn't think it was as hard as Canuck, but there are the little she puts up little turrets, and there's like the little fireballs, the little projectiles along the floor are everywhere. She was very difficult too, actually, because then I think she knocks you down or she pushes you and just constantly, and you have to look for her telegraph. You have to actually look at her animation, and when she's gonna point at you, you can tell when she's like gearing up to point at you, and you have to dodge roll as soon as she points at you. It was challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Keith was arguably the hardest of the three, and then probably
they were both tough for me. Yeah,
and then the air fight was the easiest of a hard bunch, I think.
Yeah, I didn't really have a problem with any of them. Canuck took the longest. I didn't do Keith, so I don't know what she's like. But Canuck wasn't that difficult. He just took longer than ArenaNet to kill. And then the final boss, which was, by the way, was a fantastic fight. Very, very much welcome change compared to
so good.
Zy10. I was not overly happy with the model of Mordremoth, but the fight itself was amazing.
You mean Bowser?
Bowser, yeah.
It was cool.
Bowser.
It looked.
The fight was amazing.
It was.
Really
It was
so good. It was.
And the music.
The music was
holy
delicious,
mind blowing.
Incredible.
I have to say, and we didn't really talk about this last week. We ran out of time, sort of, but the music in general throughout the entire through the entire Heart of Thorns is absolutely
It was
fantastic.
10 out of 10, 11
there was a
out of
couple
10.
of times where I'm playing the story and there was a moment I was literally getting goosebumps between the music and what was happening in the scenes.
Yeah.
And the music was absolutely on point. Fantastic.
Just the way,
And
even the
voice acting
kind
was
of
fantastic as well.
the voice acting was brilliant. But even the way the music kind of evolved depending on the situation was in, like, I actually noticed that, and I don't know, it worked amazingly for me. The cool bits of phasing, we kind of seen it in Lion's Arch, where, you know, when you go near the band, the kind of generic game music goes down and
Right.
you hear the player instruments. Yeah, there's the little Itzel dude playing the guitar in Verdant Brink. And
Oh my god,
It's so great!
it's cool, and just everything was so smooth and so perfect, and every single bit of music in that in the expansion fit whatever situation
It did.
you heard it in, and it was just, it added so much to it. I think a lot of people don't realize how much music can change how a scene or a situation can feel in a game, and it was just it was absolutely perfect.
It was really great. Those final fights were fantastic, and the music was on point. For as much grief as we kind of gave the story today so far, I do feel like it was well written. I do feel like it was well voice acted,
Oh,
and I
God,
do
yeah,
feel
100%.
like the music was absolutely on point everywhere in Heart of Thorns. There are just some problems with the story about it being too short and too compact in certain areas. Taimi and Canuck had fantastic character development, but everybody else just kind of had nothing. And I think there were
Bram.
moments where
Except Bram. He shaved his head, dude. He shaved his head.
Well, he had a little bit of character development for Broham, but
More than
I feel
other
like there was a
characters.
lot of story. I feel like there was a lot of moments where you're like chasing after one another or something, and I think those moments in the story could have been enhanced a little bit by some character development thrown in there in those
Yeah,
moments.
I do think that a good thing to note here is, like, our biggest problem with the Hearthorn story is that there just wasn't enough of it.
We just want more. We just
Yeah,
want
exactly.
more.
And there's no
Really.
huge problems in terms of what the story was really telling us, you know, what we were doing in it. It was just, we wanted more depth and more length, like, it just more, you know, like, it was just, it was really well done. I just, yeah.
So, Corvus,
I don't
are
know.
you saying you like depth and length?
Jesus.
Alex.
What?
Alex. Peachy, do you want to fire him?
I just love, like, the boss. What I found was really weird. It took me a few days to do the boss thing because I kind of ran out of time with my dodgy internet as it was back then. But I found that the first kind of half dozen times that I tried the boss fight, a lot of the mechanics didn't actually pop. So, like, there's the little fiery ball thing that fires out projectiles that didn't happen half the time. There was the time warp gravity well that appears under Mordremoth that didn't ping a bunch of times. And then I assume it got patched because then a couple of days later when I went in with my mate Dan and finished it, all of this stuff was happening. And it was just like a constant barrage of mechanics and tells and all kinds of really, really great stuff. And that, like, his and it was actually slightly trickier just doing it as just trying to sell it, because that little ground thing he does that goes along and kind of ticks you. If you're trying to pull whoever into the vent or whatever it's called, that actually stops you channeling it.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of like pull them
Interrupts
away
it.
and then run round and that kind of thing. And so someone said in chat that the updrafts wouldn't spawn occasionally, which did happen to me as well. But I think that's been patched.
I must say, like, I don't know if I was just lucky or something, but I had no problems at any point during the story playthrough. I think the only little hiccup was when they patched out the poison mastery. That gate, I just had to restart the kind of story chapter and it worked fine. I had no bugs with anything.
Log in and out a couple of times to get that to spawn to kind of.
It was ridiculously smooth, and I think that probably affected how maybe how much I enjoyed it. I think a lot of people kind of run into those bugs a few times, and it makes them frustrated, and it's a shame really, because you want to be as objective as possible. But honestly, it was smooth as hell for me.
I did the final fight in like the middle of one of their big patches. So I'm mid Mordremoth fight, and it's like, we're bringing the server down for maintenance, and I'm like, I am not logging off. You're gonna have to crash this out on me. I'm midway through the fight. It was just great because Mordremoth lays down those cascading attacks that come out, and while he's doing that, I'm rotating around him like counterclockwise with whoever I'm dragging around, Kaith or Traherne, whoever. I'm dragging them along as a Revenant while I'm moving just ever slightly like a clock around Mordremoth so he doesn't hit me with those attacks. Just that whole aspect of doing it that way felt great. It just felt really powerful. The fight felt really fun, and I didn't realize that they were putting a bubble down to protect you at first, so I kept taking to the air every single time, dodging rocks. That made it feel...
I did
that
too.
doesn't work, by the way. The bubble doesn't work the last time I tried it.
Then it's good I never used the bubble.
I took to the sky every time. I thought, and I think this confused a lot of people because I've had people message me about it. When they say take to the skies, I think most people think you jump off the platform. And that's what I tried at first too, and I was like, I can't. There's like a wall, and I couldn't jump off. But you have to get into one of those updrafts, and I figured that out the second time, and then that's like Inks. That's what I did. I was in the air dodging rocks and stuff, and I love
the rocks. I had to watch Dan finish the fight from that little platform because I got hit with a rock, and he was on like 10%, and I just had to like watch from the top.
Oh no! The bubble is for NPCs to stay safe because they can't glide.
Okay, cool.
That makes more sense.
Yeah. So you're supposed to glide in the air. But the mechanics and the different stages of this boss fight was so cool. And I'm so glad that it wasn't just one thing, you do one mechanic until you beat him. It kept constantly changing. He's taunting you the entire time. If you're a Sylvari, he's trying to corrupt you. Yeah. Canucks like yelling at you.
That's the point, actually. Is it in that fight that if you're playing a Sylvari? Yeah, no, it is. If you're playing a Sylvari, at the beginning of that fight, if you've got a non-Sylvari in your party, you turn hostile. So, like, you actually...
really? The instance very before that, isn't it? When you choose 15, between Logan and Zoja.
Yeah, in that one as well. It might be in the final one, too. I had all Sylvari, so I'm not sure in the Mordremoth fight.
Must be.
But you do turn for a second. In Chapter 15, you do turn for a second. Everyone kind of goes off ahead of you. Yeah. And all their names are red and all the Mordrum's names are green. And you're kind of like, what's going on? I kind of wish they would have developed that a little more, because that was the only time that you fully turn. And Jennifer Hale's voice acting as a female Sylvari in that final instance, when Mordremoth is actually standing in front of you for the first time, and the corruption is like at full because he's right in front of you. Her voice acting there when she's like, I can't. It's so hard to resist. I got goosebumps. I was like, oh my god! Like I thought my player character was gonna turn right there. Like I felt chills.
The male Sylvari was very well done as well.
Yeah, I was just about to say it was absolutely brilliant.
And just think, it does happen in the last instance as well, because you have to throw yourself into one of the reality rifts. Mm-hmm. Which is really cool.
To undo the corruption. That's right. Yeah. You put yourself into the rift.
You kind of check yourself, and it's like, Commander. I was like, shut up, Brian.
I had Canuck opening the rifts in mine.
Canuck was just like creating merry hell for it. It was great. You could just like let Canuck run off and start annoying Mordremoth, because what they've started doing, instead of there's particular points in the game where they stop falling over, and they do that thing that NPCs do in like the Elder Scrolls games, where they kind of like kneel down for a little bit like they're recovering health, and then they get back up and fight, which is actually quite handy, so that you don't have to constantly revive them.
Yes. And I think they'll revive you too. I think I had Kaith
Yeah.
reviving me.
Once
at
in a
one point.
while.
yeah.
They were,
That's so
I
useful.
I found that that your allies were a lot more, at least for me, they were a lot more useful this time around. I felt the AI was a little bit better.
To be honest, they felt more alive and actually a part
Right.
of...
Oh, the AI in
Yeah.
the entire expansion was just a level up.
Especially
For
because
everything.
like I had Broham for a lot of it, and so he would just run in there and pop his bubble and like, oh, thanks for the bubble, bro. I'll just sit in here with you, chill out, chill out in the bro
beers.
bubble, just have a couple beers.
Oh. Yeah, that last story instance just like redeemed the whole story for me. Like, to be honest, when I finished 15, even though chapter 15 was incredible, we kill Fowlin and we're in Mordremoth's domain, which was like the most amazing thing. Like, half the story I just sat there like looking around, taking screenshots. I was like, this is like the coolest environment I've ever been in. Like, it was amazing.
Yeah.
But after it, I knew that there was 16 chapters. And I was like, I'm not going to get the story payoffs in one more chapter that,
Yeah.
you know, I'm going to get. So and it was getting to be too late. So I finished chapter 15. I went to bed. I was very upset because I was like, I expected so many more reveals and stuff. But then the next day I got up, I did the final instance, and it was just like, I am so satisfied. That was like the best thing ever, except for the look of Mordremoth looking like a fat troll. Other than that, I was like, it was brilliant. Everything was absolutely brilliant about it.
What about the post Mordremoth instance with our man Traherne?
We get to kill Traherne?
Which, like,
The player character gets to kill Traherne? Oh my god!
But do you know what's so weird?
A
It's like-
plus, ArenaNet.
No. The thing is, for 3 years, I've been waiting. Let's kill that. You know, sorry for the language, but yeah, everyone's been like, let's get him, and then, like, in the last 30 seconds of his life, he suddenly develops a friggin' character. Right. You know, I suddenly feel bad about having to put his own sword through him.
Well,
And-
I think the brief glimpses we got of him in season 2, I think you could already see that, wow, okay, he's actually... I think a lot of people were kind of... Even though he only says a few lines, it did feel more like he was the strong guy, and I never hated Traherne, to be honest.
No,
I always
I've
thought
never
he was
hated
a cool
him.
dude.
But-
He, like, in the personal story, he annoyed the crap out of me. But, yeah,
Commander,
just that...
I need a word.
Commander.
Commander, I need a word. You've got some credit that I'm due. It's just like, but the thing, like, as he kind of like draws like Mordremoth's power in, and he starts to turn, and like his face has been like scarred and everything. It's got like
It's
neat face
mutated
on.
a bit.
Yeah,
Those
and then you like
those cutscenes and stuff as well, those like really strange, abstract, like corruption cutscenes were amazing.
and then you like run him through. And did you guys notice what the music was in that final bit?
It was Fear Not This Night.
It was Fear Not This
Oh
Night.
my god, the feels!
For like a split second.
The feels!
No, it's like a piano version that plays over in the background. It's just that I love that touch. I thought it was so good. And I guess you know, killing Traherne felt good.
Dude, I was
not as good as I was hoping. It
was a shame, right? Because playing through the personal story, right, years ago, on my Silvari Necromancer, I see Traherne get, like, I heard about Khalid Bog, and I'm like, dude, I want that. Traherne gets it, and I'm like, but he's a Necromancer. How come he can wield a greatsword? That's not fair, dude. Then, finally, we get to the point, and I see the little icon at the end, and it's like, Khalid Bog, dude, am I going to be able to use the skin? Now I can finally use greatsword. And because it's broken, it's a friggin' normal sword, and I can't use it. I've been waiting for friggin' years to be able to use Calibog.
Corvus.
I can't even do it.
No.
So, any
What's hilarious?
Any devs watching, please give Necromancer sword next in their next specialization, just so I can friggin' use the sword I've been wanting to for years.
What's funny about that is I noticed Khalid Bog before you go into the final instance. It's sitting off to the side.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
And
I didn't-
you're in this chamber full of all these large vines, right? And somehow Calibog is broken over this tiny little vine that's sitting off to the side somewhere. And of all the vines that he could have hacked with the sword, he chooses like this little vine that's coming out of the ground. It's kind of funny. So you
no,
go over and you grab it, and it's like he's like, "You're gonna have to kill me." And it's like, "Okay, no problem." And your character's like, your character's like, "But wait, we want to save you." And I'm like, "No, we don't. We just want to stab you."
It's fine.
No,
Really,
it was a hard thing to do, man.
And I didn't
It
really
was-
hate Traherne, but I had no problem just like, yeah, okay, there's a seed inside you. We'll have to just kill you. Sorry, bro.
No,
He was
it
already
was-
like half Mordrum anyway. Like
Yeah,
he
yeah.
didn't have any bottom half, and he's like, meh.
I thought it was
Like, you're
great. I
gone.
really, and I did feel quite sad for him. And I thought he obviously made that call himself as well. You know, about
Yeah.
he decided to be killed basically because
It-
he knew it was the right thing to do. He was a hero, man. Respect.
It was just kind of weird that he develops like just from like the 2 minutes that he was in Heart of Thorns, just that for me, so much more characterization than he's ever had across 2 Living World seasons and a personal story. And
He was fairly absent though from those. You know.
Yeah.
It's not like I think
like,
if we'd seen
he
more of him in
played
season
a relatively major part in season 2. He
towards
was
the very end, yeah.
Sort of.
Well, he was doing what he usually does in ordering us around and taking all the glory. So I don't think,
Yeah, but
most
I
of us
think-
thought there was
well, you
anything
have-
different going on.
You have to
but-
realize though in the personal story, like it was his wild hunt, right? He was following this thing, and in the same way we've seen Kaith being, she says that that's kind of been her wild hunt is to do with this stuff. You see that it's like this mindless determination, like that's driving you on. You kind of don't think about anyone else. You just have this thing you need to do. And I think since the personal story kind of wrapped up and he achieved that, I think he's been able to relax a bit more and actually tone everything down. I think maybe a good explanation to why he was so demanding in the personal story is just because he was being driven by this thing even he couldn't explain, And I don't know, the idea of Khalid Bolg maybe repairing that in the future, that'd be cool.
That's a little bit Lord of the Rings, though, isn't it?
I was gonna say, yeah.
That's okay.
Who knows?
That's okay.
It's alright. It's alright. Speaking of wild hunts, what about Kaith? Yeah, what about Kaith?
What about
She gives
us
that
as
wild
Safari players?
hunt up real easy, doesn't she? You're
Right.
like,
was-
give me the
was-
egg. She's like, okay, I guess I'll find another wild hunt. Here you go.
We ended up finishing.
Wasn't the Wild Hunt to take it to the city?
The whole explanation for everything she did, like she tormented us in season 2, was just explained away as it was her wild hunt, so she felt like she couldn't trust anybody else to
Right.
take the egg to the Golden City because
Okay.
it was what she was born to do.
Which I understand.
Now I accept that. Yeah, it's very quick and very simple, but I accept that. I felt like our characters chastised her for it over
Yeah.
and over and over and
see,
over.
I
I'm
was
like, aren't we
very
friends
pleased about
again?
that.
We should
No,
no, we're not
no.
friends. We are not friends.
Oh,
I
to
was
be honest,
happy with that.
I'm kind of surprised we didn't threaten to kill her more often. The way that she's
Yeah.
We
That's
did. She's like, if you step 1 inch out of line, I will
She's-
stab you.
She's like,
but
hey,
there needs to be more
did
of
I have
that.
my daggers back? I could really help you here.
Right?
You're like,
Yeah.
No,
No.
sit in the back.
You gotta sit on your hands in a cave.
Bad case. You sit in the back. No daggers for you. I trust you for one. It's not like she ever tried to attack you. She just stole an egg, and you're like, no, you cannot help. You must watch us.
And the thing is, never mind the fact that all of her Wild Hunt didn't do a bloody thing to help defeat Mordremoth.
It
She
did
was just
not
like,
really.
She just had to
It
deliver the egg. She was the egg deliverer.
She was the egg deliverer.
We ended up delivering it.
We're-
We take it from her,
yeah,
run away from
that's
Fallon,
true.
and then we do it.
But that
for
was
her.
Fallon. Yeah, that was Fallon's part. Fault.
Dude, that instance though, when you're running away from Fallon.
Oh, so good.
cool.
So good.
I screwed that one up
I
a
like-
couple of times, hitting
too.
AoEs
Oh
I
my-
shouldn't have, or
It was
Yeah.
amazing. It
it was
so
awesome
fun.
to get the dragon wings and the essence. Or whatever.
Oh my god, using the Zephyrite skills, I fangirled
Yeah.
all over the place. Oh my god.
They were so much more polished than the aspects were as well, though.
Yeah.
I was really surprised by how smooth and amazingly they kind of. It was.
So good.
By the way, there's an adventure that uses
Yeah,
That
there
uses
is.
it?
In the egg room actually in
Yeah.
Tyre. Go there.
Pretty
It's amazing.
Dude.
pretty
Yeah,
it's
yes. difficult.
Oh, it was
Lot of-
so good. And the music during that chase scene, it was
Yes.
like, it was intense, but not at the same time. It was like you have these elite skills that you're using, you are powerful, but you gotta get away from this thing that's chasing you. Like, it was so
It's a
good.
perfect blend. And then when you arrive there and you go into the city and the music plays and it's just like, oh man, that whole section of the expansion was just perfect. It was
Did
amazing.
anyone
Really
think
good.
that the Auric Basin music was quite Hearthstone-y?
No.
I don't know.
No?
I got
David,
this.
off the top of
I
my
got
head.
this kind of like Jurassic Park slash. I'm trying to like define it with another like genre. It had a very familiar kind of beat and feel to it. Very pleasing to the ear for sure.
It was really nice. Really
Yeah,
nice.
the general music. Yeah.
But yeah. Also, there were some new armor sets that that I was flicking through, and there's a minstrel set, and it's called McLean's armor after
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
that
McLean
makes sense.
Dima.
Yeah.
Lena, where's Lena's? Where's the Karain set or something? You know?
Indiana
So-
Jones, Tomb Raider. Yeah, Romo. Very
Yeah.
Adventure.
Felt-
I guess.
adventure-y. Yeah.
Yeah. What about the exalted trials before you could place the egg, before you could enter the egg
Those
chamber?
were cool. Those were cool.
I think it was strength, wisdom, and leadership.
Yeah.
I had so much problems with the leadership. Oh my god.
Wait,
You're a
rabbits?
bunny, you're
Really?
a rabbit, and you have to
Oh,
revive. I had so much trouble with that.
I love
instead.
that. You just get you. The weird thing is that you can lean on your ability to die and your allies to not die when you die, so you
Oh
can
my
die,
God.
respawn, and run back in, and then kind of like stealth bunny around and stuff.
Commander
I
Bunny.
didn't really have too much problem with that. I would revive one guy and he would run off and fight, and then I would run to the next guy to revive, and then every once in a while I'd run back and say, "Here's a shout," and then I would run away and go revive somebody else.
Yeah.
I like that whole thing. They also
Wait.
have the thing where you have to fight all the dragon mobs, right? All of those little minions of different
He
elder
summons
dragons.
one minion of each elder dragon.
one-
that was cool.
that-
I thought
that
that
And there
was
was
one
a
fun.
I
salt
barely made
water
it through.
AoE stuff. There.
Really?
Yeah.
I found
Oh,
that
yeah.
easy.
And also, I would have appreciated
It was-
some kind of hint that says
it
you
was
can't
went down.
keep standing at the bit of the room where you come in, otherwise it constantly resets. I was fighting the friggin' ice elemental or whatever the ice elemental and whatever the first one was for about 15 minutes before I figured it out.
Oh
I was
no.
like, this is ridiculous. What's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. There's those AoEs that appear on the ground, which is like salt water, like spraying up,
Yeah.
and obviously a good reference to the underwater dragon. So, I don't know. That's still a thing we can learn about in the future. That's gonna be cool, and it at least means that the Forgotten or the Exalted knew about it. You know, so
Right.
lore stuff. Be a bit more.
And then the puzzle part was really cool. It was a lot of fun.
maze.
too.
Yeah, that was.
I failed
really
that a
liked
couple
that.
times too.
I love that. I was kind of like running through, going, hit the things, hit the things.
I think
don't
I
hit
had, I think I had to reset it one time because I didn't realize. Well, so originally I recorded myself playing through it, which I ended up not using any of that footage. But because I was doing that, I sat there for forever reading like the dialogue.
That was yeah. That was the one
So
problem.
by the time I was done reading the dialogue, there was like no time left
Yes.
for the puzzle.
Yes. I was
So I
like,
had to,
wait,
I had to
I'm
set it
reading. I was like, stop, don't tick down yet. I was like, you can fail and I'll restart. I'm sitting here reading my lore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the same problem. But
Oh.
it just lets
Fun,
you
fun.
restart, so it wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah. There's a cat.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it was, yeah, all in all, like the story, really cool. Really cool
Really
with
good.
with a few things that I feel need to be addressed. I mean, like we said, length and more character development. But aside from that, I'm getting the impression that all of the kind of like there's some big keystone moments that we absolutely loved in it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, overall,
I love the
we gave it
story. I
good
did.
scores.
It just I wanted more of it at the end of the day. That's about it.
It felt too truncated.
and
the
a
scope
celebration
was-
at the end.
Some kind
Yeah.
of closure.
Some kind of
a nice
closure, yeah.
finale. It did kind of suddenly end.
The scope was much more narrow, and yes, more character development. Not enough character development.
Absolutely.
So essentially, ArenaNet, what we're saying is that we're greedy, and we want more. So,
well,
but
I
we
mean,
want more now.
I think for an expansion, I think it's okay to expect a much longer meteor story, and I felt like that we got basically a living world dose of story, more or less.
Yeah.
Some more epic cutscenes than we might see in some of the living story, but I think that's just new technology that they've been developing, really.
Yeah.
But I felt like the living story was basically a living world length kind of story, and I wanted about double that, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
And if,
Agreed.
you know, maybe double is a bit too greedy, but I felt like I was expecting double, and I felt like more character development. I felt like there were far too many chase my party through the jungle. First, Ritlock and Broham run off, and I'm chasing them, and then Rocks later, and the other splits that happen. And I felt like there could have been some more character development during those splits that just never really, because they happen in the open world. I guess maybe
it's hard to judge length as well. I mean, season 2 was given to us over the course of however many months, and intervals, and so it stretched it out a lot more. Here we basically were free to just run from start to finish, fairly easily, and so I don't know, maybe the length of season 2 was like, well, this kind of length would be fine because that's what we gave them last year, and it managed to survive. People survived that entire year basically on that kind of content, and we got a lot of cliffhangers, because it's like because every episode had to kind of end because it was going to be a few weeks till the next one, and then we had the kind of mid-season finale and all this junk. I don't know, maybe it was kind of seemed to be like long enough, but obviously given people, I finished it in a weekend. Alex, I'm trying to be professional here.
He's typing crude things in Twitch chat.
I'm quoting. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. However, I think that in season 2 we got more meat. I think we got more big story points. Like, shut up.
Say, you're the one talking about meat and. Anyway, carry on.
I feel like we learned more, but I think that so one way to look at this is maybe, like I said, I've been looking at it as you have the living world as your season of a TV show, and then I wanted the expansion to be like the movie, where all these epic things happen. I think that what happened is that even though season 2 was the setup for Heart of Thorns, I feel like season 2 we got all this meat, all this lore, all these big giant lore chunks and character development, and then I feel like the expansion story was almost like the closing. It was the epilogue almost to season 2, and I feel like the season should be the episodes should be the prologue to this big thing that the expansion brings. And I actually think that it was reversed, and so my expectations for it were not what ArenaNet intended for the expansion story to be. And I know that, and trust me, we know that it's going to continue in season 3. We know this is not the end. The story's going to continue. I think that just with an expansion, it's a game launch. That's what it is. When Guild Wars 2 launched, you had this full story with an ending. It had credits. It had the party at the end. You had this finality to it. So we wanted this next game launch. Actually, every single Guild Wars 2 game launch has had this story with a finite end and a conclusion. This is the first one that didn't. Yes, we took down an Elder Dragon. Yes, we defeated it. Yes, we know that we should party, we should be happy. But it didn't have the finality that every other Guild Wars 2 release has had. And so I think that's where a lot of disappointment came from.
And maybe we'll find out why once season 3 starts. Like I was saying earlier, it could just be because everything's going to be this immediate rush into something new or finding out what's going on after the cutscene at the end of Heart of Thorns. And I can understand that must be really difficult to plan. You know, they want season 3 to start with this huge thing. How do you put in some kind of conclusion if it's just going to be rushed straight into something else? But they could have. I don't know. I don't know how they could have done
I understand
it,
that they
it
want.
definitely
They want
felt like it needed that.
Right, and I understand that they want to keep people coming back. Of course, they want people to want to play the story going forward. So buy the expansion, and you are going to have to own Heart of Thorns in order to play season 3. They've said this a long time ago. And I understand that they want to keep the story going and want to keep people coming back, but you can have a finality to it. All of the questions are never answered. We never get an answer to all the questions, and we didn't want an answer to every single question. Of course not. We always want to be wondering, and there's always something interior to be wondering about. We have 4 more Elder Dragons. And my puppies agree that we got to take down those dragons, or we got to figure out how to restore the balance, or whatever. But I think that there are big questions that we expected the answers to, such as Gritlock, tell us what happened in the mists, and besides just there was stuff and I learned things and I'm learning my new powers.
Yeah, for sure.
I think too, like especially for the later story and the later zones and stuff, there's a lot to be said for. There's a lot of story bits and extra story bits in the actual open world. And until you really play through those maps, until you really explore those maps in full, you're missing some of those added story bits.
Yeah.
That'll develop as you play it. It gets a little bit lost in translation, I think, but there is some really fantastic lore for those who like lore, who like reading up on that stuff. There's an achievement in Arc Basin for all of the tablets. For the Exalted, definitely worth doing. There's tons of great lore and story and explanation in there about a ton of different things.
Yeah, there's ones about Glint, there's ones about the history of the Exalted.
And raids are going to have story as well. We don't know how much, but we know that they're going to have story.
Yeah, I reckon it'll probably be more of a side thing, but that's always good too. Maybe they can pursue some other things that we have questions for, in raids. There is another event in Auric Basin, which I was talking about earlier, that deals a lot with the druids and talks about this equilibrium thing, and it could easily be interpreted as something to do with the dragons. And in there it specifically mentions that the Maguma is the heart of Tyria. And, we saw the big vision with the orbs going around, and in the center was Tyria. It's about the druids and how, if equilibrium is lost, we're going to need to do something. And the druid guardian, what's this? Like, could it be like an elder dragon of Tyria or something? Would come back and try and restore stuff. And it's kind of, there's a lot of stuff there that could be interpreted into this huge big picture balance type thing. And given how important the area is to the druids, maybe that's something we could pursue in season 3, learn more about what the druids, where they are, what they're doing. You do summon a druid as well in that, as part of that event. And just the idea of equilibrium and this Tyria, the heart of Tyria being the Maguma jungle, and there being this druid guardian there. I don't know, like that was super interesting to me, and I think there's a lot of story hidden in these events that I would super recommend playing through. I think, and equally the big Dragon Stand event that we were talking about earlier, I think that adds a lot of context to the final episode and the big final boss fight. A lot of people said it felt small, like you were just fighting this thing and it was in the mine, so it didn't feel like you were fighting a dragon. If you do that event, I think chronologically that's happening at the same time as you're in that final boss fight, and it kind of opens up this picture of this huge fight that's going on. So play as many events as possible, because the story is buried in there as well, and you've got 4 maps to progress through and a lot to see in them, so it definitely adds a lot to your experience.
Going off the rails a little bit, now that the egg is in place, and we see at the end of the story that the egg absorbs quite a bit, not all of it, but absorbs quite a bit of Mordremoth's power. What do you think about this idea of now we're going from dragon to dragon, we're killing these dragons off, and every time the egg sort of continues to suck up this energy? What do you think happens when we kill all of the dragon? I mean, I don't know that the egg's going to hatch right away. I think it's more of a long-term hatching. I think we're going to kill a couple of dragons in between. And what happens when we kill all the... Like, one of Glint's things is this legacy is to bring peace and balance back to Tyria, right? So what happens when you kill all the dragons and now Tyria's out of balance?
Mm.
When the egg hatches open, we assume it's going to be a good dragon and be on our side, but what if it's not on our side?
I think
And so just have to fight the same dragon again?
There's a lot of theories here. One of the ones I heard was maybe the Exalted are actually bad and we've left the egg with them and now we're here. They were waiting for us to go kill Mordremoth and now they have this powerful dragon in their hands or something. Don't know about that. There's a lot of stuff to do with, I don't know, maybe the region as a whole. Maybe what we're doing is creating this kind of Tyrian guardian type character with this egg. Maybe that's what it's going to be raised to become. Yeah, that's the theory Mordremoth said to me. Maybe, I don't know, like, I forgot what I was going to say. Something to do with the region. Do we know specifically why Glint sent the Exalted to the jungle, the Maguma jungle, to have her egg there? Couldn't she have just made another secret cave in the desert to kind of hold it there, and maybe the Exalted could just stay with her? And...
there's a little bit of a story with the tablets on why they chose that location. I don't remember the exact reason, but there is sort of a reason why they chose that area.
Maybe it syncs up with what the Druid markings were saying about it being the heart of Tyria, and maybe it's to do with this druidic guardian that's supposed to be there if balance is out. So there's a lot of stuff here that theories, you can go crazy with.
Yeah.
Well, see, I was all about going back to Season 2 and Ogden Stonehealer saying that that dragons can become elder dragons because they thought that Glint was going to become an elder dragon.
That was the plan,
so
right?
the whole, my theory was that we have to hatch this egg and we have to raise Glint's baby to basically replace Zaitan. We whether it's good or evil or it's on our side or not, doesn't really. It's going to be what it's going to be. We can try and make it on our side, but if it's an elder dragon, it's going to consume magic. That's what they do. But all of that kind of got a wrench thrown in it by us killing Mordremoth. See, that was my hope, was that we had to hatch this egg to replace Zaitan. Then we learned that we couldn't defeat Mordremoth. We simply have to try and maybe keep the elder dragons dormant or something.
Or use some forgotten magic.
Now we're two dragons down. So
the other thing that's interesting is, and Ritlock for sure doesn't seem to understand this, and I think this is true for most of the residents of Tyria. They don't seem to they see the dragons as evil because the dragons destroy things and they kill people and they're bad for the environment, so to speak. So they see the dragons as this evil force that's against them, that wants to destroy them. But in truth, are the dragons necessarily really evil? They're eating magic for a particular reason, right? They eat magic, they go to sleep, it slowly releases back into Tyria over time. The dragons wake up and keep eating magic. So it seems like the amount of magic in Tyria gets to a certain boiling point, and then the dragons wake up to consume it before magic is out of hand.
Right.
So what happens when we kill all of the dragons and nobody's eating magic anymore?
Tyria explodes.
Does the Azura become
or we discover warp travel, and then it becomes Star Trek.
And then we go to Earth.
we go into space.
Star Wars 2.
Guild Wars 3 in space.
No real mentions of gods or anything here.
Oh no, there wasn't, was there?
No.
There's been a lot
definitely not. We really haven't heard about the human gods. There's no connection. I think that will come. I think there's a story to be told there. I think there's even some sort of connection to be made there as well.
Yeah.
The gods come back to Tyria at a time where the dragons are asleep, and there's this magic that is stored up And Abaddon is like, yeah, just release it. Just release it to the humans, release it to everybody.
Yeah.
And Doric basically says, look, this is not a good thing. We shouldn't have all this magic. It's causing problems. Please take it away from us.
Yeah.
And that's what causes the whole rift between the gods, So, interesting. I'm sure there's a correlation there, and I'm sure there's a connection between the gods and the dragons and the magic that's involved there, but we just haven't really seen that laid out for us yet.
Yeah. To the future.
To the future.
Well, that was an excellent wrap-up of the story. That was an awesome show. Very, very happy with that. We will continue to talk more about it in the post-show, so if you're watching on Twitch, please stay tuned. Don't go anywhere because there's lots more discussion. If you are watching on YouTube, thank you for joining. Scroll down below to the description. Follow us all on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter for lots more Guild Wars 2 contents. And we'll see you next week for more discussion on things and stuff in Guild Wars 2. Woo! Woo! Good job today, guys. Good job today. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.